We don't want to give up so soon, and right now, if we do not get hold of this, we will have given up on this grand experiment. And this is where I'm optimistic. I think this is what is happening. People realize now that it is so necessary out of our own self-defense, but more importantly than that, even the economic reasons. I just want to live in a free society. Even if I were a poorer person, I'd want to live in a free society. Wonderful thing is, if you fight for freedom, you automatically have the most prosperous society as well. If the concentration is on the material benefits of a free society, as we have concentrated on material benefits, and this is not to say anything negative about accumulation of wealth and being prosperous. It means if you concentrate on that and that's all you care about, then you introduce the notion that you need more government to redistribute this wealth to the privileged classes. No. And this is what has happened. So what we want to do, of course, is free up the society so that we can all be wealthy. The whole idea that we get accused so often of saying, well, you don't care about the poor, you don't want to have socialized medicine, you don't want to give everybody a free house, and on, that we don't care about the poor. But just think of the people that were supposed to get houses, you know, in the housing bubble, which we knew would burst. I mean, it didn't help the poor. They're the ones who lost the jobs, and they lost their houses, and the wealthy got bailed out. So it doesn't work. And that is why we have to understand and trust the free market system, and why individual rights are the most important. And we have a task before us, but I believe very sincerely we're making great progress. Now, the other wonderful thing about the message of liberty is it's not divisive. Some people say, oh no, they're up there fighting and killing each other, and one side wants more freedom, the other side wants more government. That's not true. They're fighting over power. What we should be arguing about over influence of good ideas and right ideas. That's what we should be. That's what we should be talking about. But freedom brings people together as long as we get people who want to be free. Now, they want to be taken care of from cradle to grave and think they can live off their fellow man and do well. That's not going to work. But that's going to end too, because they know we're broke. So even those on the receiving end know that something has to change. But the reason it really brings people together is I do believe that the logic prevails in the end. And the reason we come together with the freedom message is we don't tell people what to do with their freedom. You get to decide. You get to decide your lifestyle. You get to decide what you eat, smoke, and drink. You get to know how to spend your own money. You know, it's your money. So people should come together. We understand this pretty well with the religious liberty. We accept in this country, even though at times with political correctness things get out of hand, but basically most Americans understand we have freedom of religion. You go to any church you want, and you can also not go to church if you don't want. But that's the way it should be across the board, on your personal habits, on your economic liberties, just like religious liberties are. And for that reason, people who are interested in liberty should be very diverse. And I am very pleased that the support of the campaign is very diverse. You know, last week, we did something, didn't make the evening news. We went to Berkeley campus. Some of you are a little bit young, you don't remember what was going on in Berkeley in the 60s, and it was very controversial. They were considered left-wingers and very vicious names called about those people from Berkeley. So we went to Berkeley, and actually we had a record crowd there. We had over 8,000 people on Berkeley campus. We've come to Texas, and we've had 3 rallies. We were at Texas A&M, which is not considered the same as Berkeley, and we had a huge overflow crowd like this, thousands of people coming out. So the message of liberty, when you realize what it is, it brings people together. So we all should fight for liberty and quit arguing about how we're going to use our liberties. But it does also involve a bit of tolerance. So the liberals who say, well, people are too dumb, they don't even know how to spend their money, so we have to spend it for them. No, be tolerant. tolerant people, but they have to be responsible. Let them keep their money. Maybe there'll be incentive for everybody to go to work and spend their own money under those conditions.
Yeah.
In the same way, on the other side, some people's personal habits are not my personal habits, and I don't endorse them, but I don't have to practice them. If they don't force them on me, I'm not going to force mine on anybody else. I think that's the way it should be. But this whole idea of personal liberty, I think, is catching on. The people back in the 1918, when they passed Prohibition, and it lasted about 12 years, and then they quit, they woke up. But back then, they knew that prohibition of alcohol was unconstitutional. They had enough respect to say, we have to amend the Constitution to have that much government interference. And then, of course, it was a total failure. But they woke up after 12 years. But now we didn't amend the Constitution. Now we have all these prohibitions on what we put into our bodies. And I think drugs are detestable. I think prescription drugs are probably more dangerous than illegal drugs. I think misuse of drugs and addiction to drugs is a disease more than it is a crime. And if there are no violent acts, I mean, that's people's business. I'd like to talk you out of them and explain, but that's my responsibility to myself and to my children and my grandchildren to explain these dangers. But I am convinced that the federal war on drugs is absolutely a lot more dangerous than the illegal drugs. And we endorse drugs? No, legalizing something doesn't mean we endorse it. We don't endorse religion because it's legal. We don't endorse these things, and so that's why you have to have a more open mind. Matter of fact, the Constitution even permits the states to regulate. I mean, we have state regulation of alcohol, and young people tell me it's harder to get alcohol than it is to get marijuana, so it's not accomplishing a whole lot. So, but this whole idea of who's to take care of us and who's to warn us about the dangers, do we have a nanny state? What's disgusting to me is it leads to doing more irrational things. Like we have lost our right to pick our own light bulbs. You know, this is pretty bad. We can't even buy our own light bulb. What about the right to drink raw milk? I don't think that should be complicated. But the real tragedy there is it's an excuse to undermine our liberties. More time to search houses and break into houses. These SWAT team operations. They say there are dozens and dozens every single day in this country. And lo and behold, I'm sure you can't believe it. Sometimes they go into the wrong houses and kill the wrong people. Ooh. And they find they didn't even have the drugs. But obviously, you know, the nonviolence should be something that we should change our mind about. You take nonviolent people who've used drugs 3 times, put away in prison for a lifetime. And if you put in there for a short period of time and put in with a lot more violent criminals, you come out with a much more hardened criminal. There's no sense. And the one reason why I think we're really winning this, there's a certain preacher that's been well known for being absolutely opposed to this, and that's Pat Robertson. He says it's time to look at this. This drug war isn't working, so we are now bringing elements together just out of logic and persistence, and we will come to our senses. And besides, it's cost about $3 or $4 trillion since the early 1970s. All money wasted, just as the wars overseas are wasted. Our national debt has gone up over $4 trillion in the last 10 years for these wars. A simple process would have prevented all this. No wars without a declaration by the Congress, and then go to war, win them, and get them over. Now, the one thing that I am very pleased with in our campaign is at the present time, and basically during the campaign, other than our governor, nobody else has been in the military. So all the candidates now have never been in the military. I've been in for 5 years. And I get tremendous support from the military as well as the veterans. And I don't think it's because I'm a veteran. I think they respect me for this, that I haven't been like some back in the 60s that avoided the draft and now promote war. They're called chicken hawks. But what I am proud of is if you add up all the money sent by the active military personnel to all the candidates through this past year, we got about 7 times more than everybody else put together. So they would think that if you don't support the war, you don't support the troops, you're un-American, and you don't defend our country, and I think that's a bunch of baloney. I think what we need is to defend our country, but we don't need to overdo it. We don't need to ever accept this principle of preemptive war. Preemptive war is equivalent to invading and starting a war. We should defend our country, but we should never start a war. So let us be optimistic that the revolution is well on its way. It's growing by leaps and bounds. We don't know exactly what will happen, but you can make a difference in the election in Texas and everything that you do from here on out. Be engaged, understand the issues. People will use you in one way or the other, but we all have a responsibility. And this is where I'm optimistic, with the people coming together, the young people and those who have felt disenfranchised for so long. The necessity is obvious. The failure is around us, the economic failures and the foreign policy failures and the debt that we're facing. But we have the facilities and we have the understanding, and now we have the enthusiasm to once again bring about changes that will bring us the peace and prosperity that has made America great. Thank you very much.